time to heal and feel, be real. You just gotta take your time, unwind and chill. Cause now it's time to love yourself. Build emotional and mental health. Cause Black woman, it's time to heal and feel, be real.
Hey y'all, we are back with another episode of Black Woman Healing Podcast. But before we get started, we are going to do a this or that as usual. And I am thinking about it getting a little more cold now. And so I love a good internal hug, aka a warm drink. Excluding tea, I'm curious which one you go to, Danica. Hot cocoa or coffee? Now that you've been, wait, before you answer, now that you've been exploring different types of coffee drinks, because I know you're going to say, I don't really do coffee. I can get you to do some coffee. So now that you've been exploring and opening up your eyes a little bit more, what would you pick and why?
This is funny because you tried to say not tea. She tried to say not tea because she know
I'm not a coffee drinker either. I'm your people.
But she is right that you can get me to drink some coffee. And actually, I have had coffee like way more than I have in my life the last like 6 months. And I think, to be honest, it's because like I'm tired, which is not necessarily good. But I would say my preference is still hot cocoa though. If it's hot chocolate and coffee, I'm not going to choose the coffee. Hot chocolate just makes me feel like nostalgia. It makes me feel like I can't explain it. Coffee it's not. Sometimes it can be good, but it's not a guarantee that it's going to be good. But hot chocolate, that's going to be good. So I'm going to choose the hot chocolate. My about you is disappointed.
I'm so disappointed. But I will say, so I'm not a hot cocoa drinker just because I don't really like chocolate like that. And I feel like I'm really just drinking melted chocolate. It's a brain thing. But growing up, my dad loves chocolate. Like, we would literally go to Starbucks when he would drop me off at school to get me hot chocolate. And I'd be like, I don't even drink this. Like, what are we doing? Or he would make it for me. And I'd be like, still to this day, he will make me hot chocolate when it's cold. And I'm like, what are you doing? But when I was in Paris this past summer, they have some bomb hot chocolate. Like, it is really good to where I was like, let me get a second cup. So if I'm in Paris, I'll drink the hot cocoa. But when I'm thinking about coffee, I'm thinking about different types of drink, and I love a horchata latte. Like, a horchata latte, it hits, y'all. I don't know if y'all ever had one, but that's what I'm picking. It's bomb.
Add that. That sounds real good. I like horchata. Ooh,
it's so good. Mariah, what about you?
I'm with Danica. I work off my own natural energy. I'm annoying. Like, I do not drink coffee. Every once in a while, like once every like 3 months, I'll have a chai latte with almond milk, like warm. That's it. But I would definitely go with the cocoa with almond milk though, because I'm like, the milk be messing up my stomach. So we got to do it almond or oat milk, depending on what they have, and I'm good with that. But when I go to Europe, I will drink coffee and then be wired. Like, I cannot. I'm very sensitive to caffeine. Like, I can't drink soda. I'm like I drink a Celsius, like half a Celsius. It was like 9 p.m. I drink it at like 10. It was like 9. I was like, I'll never drink one of those again. So I got to be careful with my caffeine intake.
Yes. And I think like traveling and trying different coffee is such an experience now that I'm an adult, and like I do that because every place has like their own unique type of coffee and like how much you should even drink. Like, you're making me think about Mariah when we were in Europe, and my partner's mom had got coffee and it was this big, and she was like, why is it so little? And I was like, well, in America, we do big coffee. Other places do not do that because it's so strong, and you can get good.
Yeah, I had to put the water. I was like, this is too much. I was in Italy. I was like, this is too much. I got to put water in here.
I like that though. And then I want to try, because I never thought of that, to try like the different coffees or even the hot chocolates, like you're saying, Myra. That's cool.
Yeah. So before we transition over, I do want to suggest, like, I know we're boycotting Starbucks. Some people are not. But when you travel, to please try out different drinks. But I mentioned Starbucks because in Chicago, they have different areas dedicated to different parts of the world that serve coffee. And so you get to learn about different types of coffee across the world. So anyway, I will pass it on over to Danica to introduce our guests.
Yes. All right. So today we have Mariah Covington. Mariah Covington earned her BA in sociology from Howard University and her MA in forensic psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Mariah implemented DBT Steps A, which stands for Dialectic Behavioral Therapy Skills for Training Emotional Problem Solving for Adolescents. This is a school-wide social emotional learning program at a boarding school for at-risk youth in Washington, D.C. Prior to that, Mariah worked at a residential treatment facility for adolescents, where she conducted and published peer-reviewed journal articles on the effectiveness of DBT. In this role, she also co-facilitated DBT group skills training. Mariah has worked extensively with adolescents who have experienced trauma, cognitive difficulties, mood disorders, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. She also works with parents to provide a continuity of care. Mariah is a member of the ISIT DBT board. Currently, she works at Wake Kendall in Washington, D.C., providing DBT treatment and therapeutic services for adolescents. Wow, Mariah, you have been doing it up. Oh, I thank you so much.
That's a mouthful. A lot of acronyms.
And the adolescent piece, I know we're going to get into it, but I just love that a lot of your focus has been for the adolescents. I think that we don't hear about that as much. So, yeah, thank you. But getting into it, so for listeners who may not be familiar with DBT, can you explain the basics and what makes it effective?
Sure. So DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy. So most people know CBT, right? Most people know cognitive behavior therapy. DBT is under that umbrella. That's what DBT is. So when you look at it like big picture, it's acceptance and change. That's what, like what can we change about ourselves and what can we accept about ourselves? That's what dialectics means. And it rests on like mindfulness skills. And then there's 4 modules that come into DBT. And that's so like as a whole, there's a couple of components. It's a very structured treatment. So you have 90 minutes of group, 90 minutes to 2 hours of group per week, 50 minutes of individual, and then a diary card and homework. So if you decide to like do this treatment program, you're going to be dedicating about 3 to 4 hours of your week, when you count in homework and diary cards, to dialectical behavior therapy. And it really was made for people who have emotion regulation issues, right? So what we're saying is that you have a person who have you guys heard of like HSP, highly sensitive person?
Oh, I haven't.
Okay. So
I haven't.
So highly sensitive person or a super sensor, right? They come into contact, and it's about 40% of, or 30, I'm sorry, 20%, 20 to 30% of the world's population are super sensors or highly sensitive persons. They come into contact with an invalidating environment. That's the environment that tells them that their feelings are bad or wrong or weird or too much. And this person who's a super sensor just was born biologically more sensitive. Like you ever, like some babies just cry a little bit more, a little more attached to the parent, that type of, like they just walk empath is another word for this, where they have just a little bit more, like they're just more emotionally connected, and they have like emotions that come up pretty high and their baseline stays there longer, and it takes them a little bit longer to get back to baseline. You have them interacting with an invalidating environment, which could be pretty much, everybody always thinks of your family, right? Your home. But then that could also be school, right? It could also be sports teams. And that's what's creating, like, it's like a mismatch. You have the super sensor, and then they're in a family where people are telling you, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that, don't show emotion. Or society telling you, or your coach telling you, or your school telling you you're wrong, weird, bad. And then it's like that mismatch. You're not sure how to feel. And then you're like, okay, well, am I too much? Am I overly sensitive? And then you start to kind of like dysregulate. So those are those are the people or what the treatment was made for. That's our biosocial theory. That's like the core of the treatment. But that's like in a nutshell what it looks like.
Thank you for breaking that down. I think that the other additional pieces of DBT are what people are not aware of, because I oftentimes will have clients that will be like, I think I need to do DBT. And I'm like, well, do you know of like all the additional components of it? And they'll be like, oh, like I actually didn't. And so they'll like try it out and then they'll come back to me and they'll be like, I just couldn't do it because it was so much. And then I'll challenge them and push back and say, well, this is something that you sought out and you're identifying the reasons in which you need it. Maybe you need to challenge yourself and go all in with your needs. And so I'm happy that you're like breaking it down in this way, because a lot of people are not aware. And so I'm curious, why do you think people of color may not know or seek out DBT therapy?
Yeah, it's a lot of reasons, right? Like most things, it's complicated. I think one of the biggest things is that we just don't see ourselves reflected in the treatment. Like if you just go on YouTube, let's say somebody says something about it and you just, let me go on YouTube and see if there's any videos. I have not scrolled and seen somebody who looked like me talking about it. I have not. I mean, obviously there's opportunity there. People are like, why don't you do it? I'm like, well, why don't you come to my house with the cameras and all that? But I have not seen one. Please correct me. Please, I would love for you to correct me in the comments.
You're right.
Like, because please point me to the video. I would love to do that for my clients. But like, I have not seen, like, just if I just do a simple Google, you're not going to see ourselves reflected. Again, I'm on the board, right? I'm on the DBT board. I do a conference every year and I'm counting. And I'm counting like 6, like seriously, and there's 500 people in the room. So it has historically been an overwhelmingly white female treatment. So when you don't see yourself reflected in a treatment, and if you're looking for a Black therapist, because we know about treatment outcomes, it's really, sometimes you just don't have many options. Like clients, and I live in DC, and DC is, lots of educated Black folks here. And people will tell me that I was their only option. In DC, if that's like that in DC, I can't imagine what it would be like in different places around the country. So that's the number one. Number 2 is expense. DBT is one of the most expensive treatment programs. You're talking about individual and group per week. You're looking at, I'm saying, if I had a ballpark, I should know because the No Surprises Act, right? Like where you have to send that. But I'm thinking like 25, 30,000. Like it's very expensive. But there are some places who take Medicaid, few and far between, that do DBT with Fidelity. And then very few clinicians take insurance. So, because insurance doesn't like to pay for, let's not get into, that's a different podcast episode about insurance. And then probably the third thing is misdiagnosis. Like we know that people of color are some of the most misdiagnosed, especially men. We know that men and typically you're going to see a lot of, you're going to see borderline personality disorder written all over this treatment. But men are and women have the same rates, we know, but like women are diagnosed far more than men. So, and then people of color in general are just misdiagnosed. So if you're misdiagnosing them, they're not looking at what treatment works for that diagnosis, right? So that's a part of the issue too. And then treatment outcomes, right? We know that in all medicine, like even the MD side, that if you are, have a clinician of color or a practitioner of color, your treatment outcome looks actually better than when it's not, like when there's a mismatch there. So there's a lot of, and then just the dearth of research in our population. There's like, if you were to be like Black DBT treatment outcomes on one of like the peer review journals, I am trying, and I'm looking, and I know because I'm really into the field and I'm looking at the recent research, you're not going to see much. Like a year if one comes out, maybe 2. Like, so there's just a huge gap there. And that's like, it's a couple of things.
Yeah. As you were sharing, it was making me think about my Black friends who do practice DBT and how it was a white woman that put them in the space to practice DBT and that taught them those things. And so then I was tracing back and I was like, so that means it was probably another white person that put them onto it. And so I'm curious for you, who put you onto DBT? Because DBT was not something like I've always been aware of it, but it's never been something that I've been attracted to simply because, like you stated, I don't see any Black people in that space. And so for you, your journey and who put you onto it, I'm curious.
It was an accident. So I did not go seek it out to me. I just want to be honest. I was in graduate school. I was at the Maryland Psychological Association volunteering for the conference. You know how like this is back in the day when you had to like write out your CUs and you had to like they would like you had to stay the whole thing, and then like they were like when you were a volunteer like do not let people leave early. They're not getting their CUs. So I was one of the little people at the desk like it is not 5:00 yet. Like so I was at the conference, the yearly conference that they had, and there's this woman, Dr. Colleen Quinn. She is a white woman, and she was saying that she needed interns. And I was like, oh, okay, like let me see what's up. So I said, oh, I'm looking for an internship, and then it just happened to be that they were rolling out DBT at a residential in Baltimore, state-ran residential, not the fancy ones. And they were rolling DBT out for the community, and then for the residential treatment. And then I had left the field because they was playing with my money. Yes. So I left the field. I had bartended all the way through, and I was bartending one night, and this woman was telling me she was a principal at a school. And we were chatting, and I was really being myself, so I did not think that I would get the job. But she was like, oh, just send me your resume. Just send it to me. And I was like, all right, fine. So I sent it to her, and she was like, oh, like I remember I go into the school, and she's like, oh, yeah, we're doing DBT in the school. And I was like, what? Like, and it just like, that's why I say DBT chose me. Like I had kept not trying to do it, and it just kept coming back into my life.
Yes, that is dope. Thank you for sharing that. So, I was going to ask you what inspired you to get into the mental health
I have a question really quick. I have a question. Because I'm thinking of what are resources out there. And I don't know if you know, because with DBT, I was at a community, I was working at a community nonprofit, and they were pushing for us to be trained in DBT. Mm-hmm. But like you're saying, a lot of times if you don't have like basic needs, it's like to dedicate 3 hours, you're barely getting these clients to come for 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. So then to ask them to come for groups and to give homework and all of that, it seems, and like you said, it being like this white women's treatment, meaning like a lot of times they have more resources, they have more time, depending on what's going on. So I'm just thinking of, like, are there any resources out there for people who do want to get DBT but can't afford it? Like, is there anything in specifics?
That's a good question. And I would say, you know what, if you haven't access to, let's say you have Medicaid, there's FFCP. I cannot remember what it stands for right now, but if you're in Maryland, they have more than one location in Maryland and DC. You can go there if you have Medicaid. I would push very strongly on your insurance provider to sign what's called a single case agreement to cover the treatment. If you've been in and out of the hospital, you can kind of make the case that so hospital visits are costing more than what this treatment would cost, right? So I would do that to try to just, I don't want to say finesse, but kind of, but finesse your insurance company to get them to pay for it. But there's resources online, there's books. I've had clients come to me that have done the books on their own and found them, somewhat helpful, but it's just different. What I would ask for? I would ask for like in individual services that you use your insurance company for. I would say, hey, can I get DBT informed counseling, which is not the robust individual group diary card, homework situation. It's just like how how you inform your counseling. So you might be able to find somebody that does DBT informed counseling, which would give you some of the treatment there.
Okay, thank you.
Danica, you just made me think about how you can also, some jobs are flexible with this in California as far as I know, but you can go to your HR and say, hey, I'm needing to, I forget like the language, but I helped a client do it where they went to like their HR and they were able to talk to them about doing DBT on the clock. So they were still getting paid to go to work, but they were able to leave work during certain times to go get DBT treatment. Yeah, and I had never heard of that in my time.
Where's this at?
I did this thing, and I don't know how it's going to work into my work schedule because we were transitioning into them doing DBT. And so they were like, I think I'm going to go ask my job. And their job was like, yeah, you just have to tell us what the schedule is going to be and we support it. But it was an agreement that took place with HR, and HR communicated with their supervisor for them, you know, of course, not telling all their business, but basically saying for them to be the best employee, this is something that they're needing to do. And I was like, what? So
if you don't know, ask. And also, like, just so everybody's aware, it's a 6-month treatment, right? So the skills group, it's 6 months. We like some places may not make you do a year, but most places are at the 6 months. So keep that in mind, right? It's 6 months. So you might just have to readjust for the 6 months, because if you got like real, you know, you're suicidal, you got things going on, deep depression, you might need to do these 6 months to like, of intensive. It keeps you out of the hospital, but it's intensive and it's structured, and you can still, you know, be in your life. But for those 6 months, you're dedicated to treatment.
For sure. So you tell us a little bit about how you kind of shifted into adolescence and how you got into DBT. But if we rewind back a little bit, I'm curious how you even got interest in the mental health field and what inspired you to pursue that career.
I don't remember. It's so funny. This is how I talk in my sessions. Like, that's what I'm like. I talk like this in real life. I tell my clients that all the time. Like, this is how I really talk. I cannot remember. I know I did sociology undergrad. Cannot tell you what I thought I was going to do with that. That was quite some time ago by then. And then for graduate school, I did forensics and had an internship and said, maybe not. So I made a transition after that, but I just it wasn't. Now my goal and purpose is so much more refined than it was back then. My goal now is to move the field forward. Like, my goal now is to enhance and adapt DBT for different populations, and mainly Black populations. But what back then I was kind of like, I told you, these things find me. Like, I was just kind of floating in the wind. I wish I could tell you like a really cool story, but
that's okay. That is totally okay. Sometimes the field just chooses us. We don't choose it. So it's totally fine.
Yeah, I love that too. I think that we need to hear these different types of stories as well. And following what comes to you. Because like you said, DBT just kept coming. You're like, no. Like, paying attention to what's like coming to you. So I like it. So I'm thinking of, for therapists interested in specializing in DBT or in the adolescent mental health field in general, what advice would you give them as they begin their new journey?
Okay, so that's a great question. Specifically for DBT, if you're already licensed, you're a licensed psychologist or LPC or you're a social worker, the first thing that I would do is I would attend the conference. So that's actually on Thursday. I will be co-chairing the conference, but I would attend the conference. I would sign up for the listserv so I could just kind of see what's going on. I would see what's going on in my area. Is there anybody that I can learn from? Is there anybody else that are willing to to help me? See if it's something for you. DBT is not for every clinician. Right? People don't like, it's very structured. Like, I'm coming in here like diary card. Thank you. Like, it's like this. And then we set an agenda, have clients send me an agenda so that we can stay on course. So it's, if that's not your style, it's not your style, just to know, get you, if you're really thinking about it, like, get you on a good, effective DBT team. And a DBT team is for clinicians only, and it's therapy for the therapist. So you come in there, you talk about your clients, you talk about your burnout, and you have like this kind of, weekly meeting where you're talking about different things and what supervision is, but a little bit more enhanced and structured. Read some of the books. I would say read some of the language, see if it speaks to you or not. If you're already a clinician, and you do not have to be certified from the Linehan board to practice. I am not certified. That is a process that I'm going to start in 2025, but I haven't started it yet. So you don't have to be certified. You just need to be on a really good DBT team, and then have somebody that you're learning for. And there's really good in session vignettes and stuff that you can watch on different sites. So I would watch that too, because you'd be feeling like, wait, am I doing this right? The whole time. And then for adolescents, get into school. That's where they're at. Get into school, get in a community center, get in like a rec center, just to, if you're not, licensed yet, volunteer just to be around students. Be yourself when you get around them. Like, I see like people, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, I'm not supposed to be cool. Like, if you think I'm cool, that's a problem. Like, I'm not supposed to be cool. Like, they think I'm cool, but I'm not. I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm not cool. Like, there's not cool about me. Like, but like, just being yourself, come in, being authentic, because kids, they be knowing when you faking. Like, they can, like that. So if you're, looking at that adolescence, I really like the adolescents, young adults, like the 18, 19-year-olds too. Which is like very different than like a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old they're so different. Especially with that transitioning into adulthood. So go where they're at.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of that. Like, you've been able to implement this DBT, like the 90 minutes, the everything. You've been able to implement this with the adolescents.
So yeah. So in the residential, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. I'm thinking of like getting parents buy-in. I'm thinking of that part too.
No.
Like,
So at my current practice, we actually don't have an adolescent DBT program, but there are places that have an adolescent DBT program, and they have 2-hour groups, and the parents are at the group. So when I was in residential, we would have the parents come for group.
awesome.
Yeah, so that they're learning the skills.
Absolutely.
And we would have the kids sometimes teach the parents the skills. So yeah, you can, and then they be doing homework and diary cards. Yeah, but you be pulling up on them because they don't do it. The adults don't do it either though, so don't worry about it. Like, whatever the adults and the kids do the same exact thing, I promise. Like, so that's what I've learned throughout the years.
Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah, adults, like without children, like my adult clients and my adolescent clients are doing the same exact thing. So, I'm just like, okay, like it's fine. Like, I just want to
Yeah, no, I love that advice though. That one is, it sounds like there is support out here, but also like start somewhere, go where the adolescents are at, like do something. That's what I'm hearing. So have you noticed in any specific populations where DBT it doesn't really work well with them? And like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I say clients with intellectual disability. Like, so if you're looking at like under a 70, 75 range, and I'm talking about like with your IQ, right? If I have not seen that work well with that population. It's a lot. It's heavy. It's theory heavy. It's structured. There's homework. They're reading. Like, so if they're not able to do that part and grasp that, it's really going to be difficult for them. However, I heard of someone taking the skills and making them all visual and doing it with their ID clients. I cannot remember who it was. I can't remember who it was, and I was trying to connect with them because I wanted them to come to the conference. But there are people who are adapting it. There are adaptations for clients with ID, because I had a client with ID and it just didn't work. And they were trying to put me in touch with those people, and it kind of it didn't happen. But there are some clients, because some people were like, oh, but I do great, right? And with the resources, but personally, it's just one of those populations that's difficult. And then the second is people on not all people with autism, but the more severely, like the more severe autism, because it's a spectrum,
Right.
really difficult. They find group very difficult. Like just being in a group setting, having to speak in front of people and connect, and it's not usually I can tell, like, right, like when they're in my group with someone with that diagnosis and it's more severe, but it's a little bit more difficult for them to just like how they show up in group, and kind of some of the anxiety that comes with anybody really speaking in front of people. But the more severe it is, the more difficult the treatment is for them.
That makes total sense. As we wrap up, we thank you for your time, and we want to ask you, do you have any takeaways for our listeners? It can be anything.
I hate when I know somebody gonna ask me a question and I should have prepared a little bit better. Oh my gosh, the takeaway. I was thinking about when I was talking about like the internship and how I got the internship. Ask questions. Listen, ask your doctor questions. The MD, ask them questions. Ask your MA questions, like your therapist. And if you're someone who's trying to do something, ask people. People genuinely want to help you. Right. And so, I know like I'm an adjunct professor as well. So a lot of my students are scared to ask questions. Some of the best things that have happened to me in my life is because I ask questions. Mm-hmm. Right. So just come up to people and just don't, obviously you're going to be fearful and do it anyway. But two things can be true at the same time. Right. You can be scared and still do the thing. So just ask as many questions as possible. If you're annoying with the questions, whatever, right? They'll be okay. They just won't answer. That's fine. You send emails, try to link with people, ask questions.
Absolutely. I love that takeaway. Yeah. So thank you so much, Mariah. I think that our audience is really going to like this just because this is information that we don't speak about. I think that for therapists, if therapists and other mental health professionals are listening, I feel like this is also something we don't speak about. We don't get to talk about in this depth, especially as Black folks. So I think this is going to be a really impactful episode. All your information will be in the description. So please, everybody, follow up with Mariah if wanting information. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast.